In this video, I am going to explain about shortest job first scheduling algorithm. I will explain this scheduling algorithm with the help of an example. Okay, so let us assume that we have four processes P1, P2, P3 and P4. And the burst time of these processes are 25, 30, 15, 90. That means process P1 requires 25 milliseconds of CPU time in order to finish its execution, and P2 requires 30 milliseconds of CPU time in order to finish its execution. So like that we have for P3 we have 15 milliseconds, P4 90 milliseconds. Okay, so now let us assume that all these processes has entered into the queue at the same time, at a time 0. So P1, P2, P3, P4. So for all the processes the arriving time is same here. Okay, here the arriving time is same and it is 0 milliseconds. Okay, so now here I have written the Gantt chart of these processes. So Gantt chart is nothing but it is a schedule of these processes. Gantt chart is nothing but it's a schedule of these processes. That means at what time which process should be executed. Okay, so if you observe the Gantt chart, if you see the Gantt chart here, P1 has entered at 15 milliseconds time. Okay, at this time P1 has taken the CPU. Okay, so and after executing some period of time it has released the CPU at this time. Okay, so P2 has taken the CPU at this time. Okay, and it has executed for 30 milliseconds of time. Okay, it has taken the CPU for 30 milliseconds and it has finished its work and it released the CPU at this time. Okay, so here the Gantt chart represents at what time which process should get the CPU, how much time it should be executed, and at what time it should release the CPU. So this information is available in the Gantt chart. Okay, so by seeing the Gantt chart we can say that P3 has entered at 0. P3 has taken the CPU at time 0 and it has released the CPU at 15, time 15. Okay, and P1 has taken the CPU at 15 and it has released the CPU at 40. In that way P2 taken the CPU at this time and it is released the CPU at this time. Okay, Gantt chart represents this all information. Okay, so here we will try to calculate the waiting time. So before that, if you observe all the processes burst time, so which process has the shortest burst time? P3 has the shortest burst time. So next P1 has the shortest burst time. Next P2 has the shortest burst time. Then P4 has the shortest burst time. Okay, so in the shortest job first scheduling algorithm, the process which has the shortest burst time will be executed first. That means first we should give CPU to the process P3. So all the process has entered into the queue at time 0, right? So at this time we will give the CPU to the process P3. We know that process P3 burst time is 15 milliseconds. So it will be executed for this time and it will release the CPU after finishing its execution. Okay, so now what is the next process which has the shortest burst? This one. So now P1 takes the CPU and it executes for 25 milliseconds of time and it will release the CPU at this moment. Okay, so after that which one is minimum? P2. So P2 will take the CPU and it will be executed for 30 milliseconds of time, then it will release the CPU. It will free up the CPU. Okay, so next, so here if you observe P4 has the largest burst time, so it will be given CPU at last. Okay, so here CPU will be given to the P4 at this moment and after finishing its execution it will release the CPU. Okay, so here if you observe, once we have given the CPU to a particular process, then we are not taking the CPU from it until it finishes its work. Here if you observe, first we have given CPU to the process P3. Process P3 requires 50 milliseconds of time to finish its execution. So we are allocating CPU for this process 15 milliseconds. Okay, So after finishing the execution of this process, then only we are taking the CPU from it. That means we are not forcing any process to give the CPU. Okay, we are not taking the CPU from the processes in between the execution. Okay, we are allowing each and every process to finish its execution, then only we are taking the CPU. So this is called non-preemptive scheduling, because we are not forcing any process to give the CPU. Okay, so after finishing the execution of the process, then only we are taking the CPU. So now P2 has got the chance at this time, so CPU will be allocated to P2. Okay, so and it will take the CPU and it will execute. Okay, after finishing the execution, then only we will take the CPU from it. So this is called non-preemptive scheduling. So this shortest job first scheduling, we can call it as non-preemptive shortest job first. We can call it as non-preemptive shortest job first scheduling algorithm. Here we will try to calculate the waiting time. So from this chart we can directly say the waiting time of each and every process. So what is the waiting time of P3? P3 waiting time is 0. So what is the waiting time of P1? P1 has 15. Okay, so here we have to write 15. Okay, so then what is the waiting time of P2? 40. So here I have written 40. What is the waiting time of P4? 70. So I have written 70. Okay, so now we need to calculate the average time. What is the average time? So total time by number of entries. So here I have to write 4. Okay, so 125 by 4. 31 point something. Okay, so this is the average waiting time if you use the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. Okay, so we have another variant in the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. We will discuss this one with this example. Okay, so this is also shortest job first. Here also we are using the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. Here I have processes P1, P2, P3, P4, and here I have written the burst time of each and every process. Okay, so here if you observe in this table, all the processes has entered at the same time. Arrival time of each and every process is same, but here if you observe, the arrival time of each and every process is different. Okay, so P1 has entered first, after 1 milliseconds P2 entered, after another millisecond P3 entered, after that P4 has entered into the queue. Okay, so now we will try to represent it in the Gantt chart. Okay, so here also we are following the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. So here if you observe, this is at time 0. Okay, now time is 0. So if you observe at 0 time, only P1 has entered into the queue. No other person came at 0 time, right? So P1 is available in the queue. So we are trying to execute P1. So we have started with P1. So now the time is 1. Now the time is 1. So at this time, if you observe, P2 has entered into the queue. Okay, now at this moment P1 and P2 are available in the queue. So if you observe, out of 8 milliseconds time, so 1 millisecond time is executed. Okay, P1 is executed for 1 milliseconds of time. That means remaining time is 7 milliseconds. Okay, already 1 millisecond it has been executed, so it needs another 7 milliseconds of time. So and P2 requires 4 milliseconds. Okay, here we are following shortest job first, right? So among these two, which one has the shortest burst time? First one has the 7 milliseconds and second one has the 4 milliseconds. So P2 has the shortest burst time. So we have to give CPU to the P2. That means we need to take the CPU away from the process P1. Here if you observe, P1 has not finished its execution, but here what we are doing, we are taking away CPU from it forcibly. Okay, so we are taking the CPU from process P1 and we are giving the CPU to the process P2. So how much time it requires? It requires 4 milliseconds of CPU time. So it will be executed for 4 milliseconds of time. Okay, then it has finished its execution. It is used 4 milliseconds of CPU time. So what is the time now? 5. Okay, so before that we have 1 milliseconds. Now this time is 4 milliseconds. This time is 1 millisecond. So in total, what is the time here? 5. So at this time, if you observe now, time is 5, right? So at this time, all the processes has in the ready queue, because P1 has entered at 0, 1, 2, 3. So all the processes are in the ready queue now. So this one is finished, P2 is finished its execution. Then how many processes are there? 1, 3 and 4. Among these three, which process has the shortest burst time? Which process has the shortest burst time? P4, right? So we have to give CPU to the P4. So how much time it will get the CPU? It will get the CPU for 5 milliseconds. So it will be executed for 5 milliseconds. Okay, then what is the time now? So till here 5 milliseconds, up to here 10 milliseconds. Now we are at this time. Okay, so this one is also finished. So after that, which one is minimum? So P1 burst time is minimum. So CPU will be allocated to P1. So if you observe, only 7 milliseconds of work is remaining, right? So it will be allocated CPU for 7 milliseconds of time. What is the time now? 10 plus 7, 17. So now we are left with only one process, that is P3. So we have allocated CPU to the process P3. So it will be executed for 5 milliseconds of time. Okay, then what is the time now here? Sorry, P3, right? 9. 9 means 26. Okay, so here if you observe the Gantt chart, you can see the starting time and finishing time of each and every process. Okay, so now we will try to calculate the waiting time of each process. Okay, so now we try to calculate the waiting time of each process. Here if you observe this Gantt chart, here 40 will be the waiting time of P2, right? And 70 will be the waiting time of P4. But here if you observe, what is the waiting time here? It is showing 1 millisecond is the waiting time, right? But here if you observe, P2 has entered into the queue at 1 millisecond. At this time it has entered the queue, and at this time it got the CPU. That means it has not waited for any time, right? There is no waiting time associated with the P2. Okay, because it has entered at this time and it has given the CPU at that time only. Okay, so there is no time associated with P2. So while calculating the waiting time, so we have to write, this is called total waiting time, right? So here it will shows the total waiting time. So we have to write total waiting time minus we have to write the arrival time. Okay, total waiting time is 1 for process P2 and arrival time is 1. So we need to write 1 minus 1, that is equals to 0, right? So while writing the formula for waiting time, so what is the formula? From the total waiting time, we have to subtract the arrival time. Okay, that is the one point you need to remember. And the next one is, if you observe P1 has got one slot here and another slot here, right? So if you observe, it looks like it has waited for 10 milliseconds, right? But if you observe, before 10 seconds also, it has executed for 1 second, right? That means it has not waited for 10 seconds, it has waited only 9 seconds. Because it has used the CPU for 1 second of time. So that means we have to subtract this time, right? So from the total waiting time, we have to subtract the process executed time. So this is the total time. What is the total time? 10. From this, we need to subtract the process executed time. Process executed for 1 millisecond. So we have to subtract it. Okay. So this is the formula to calculate the waiting time. So what is the formula? Total waiting time, that means 10 is the total waiting time, minus process executed time. Process executed time means 1 milliseconds minus arrival time. What is the arrival time? 0. That is the formula. By using that formula, we will calculate the waiting time for each and every process. Here I am giving the waiting time of P1. So what is the waiting time? 10 minus how much time it has been executed? 1 second. So I have written minus 1. When it has arrived, what is the arrival time? 0. So minus 0. Value is 9. Again, waiting time of P2. So what is the waiting time of P2? It looks like 1. But we need to subtract arrival time. So what is the arrival time? 1. So we need to subtract 1. Then what? So is this process executed before? No, right? So this value is 0. It has not been executed previously. Only process 1 has executed for 1 millisecond of time before the waiting time. So no other process has executed before that, right? So here if you observe waiting time of P2. What is the waiting time of P2? So here the total waiting time is 0. What is the waiting time of P3? What is the waiting time? 17. So I have written 17. So before that, is this process executed anywhere? No. So here process execution time before is 0. Next, what is the arrival time? 2. So I need to subtract 2. What is the value? 15. Again, what is the waiting time of P4? 5. So I have written 5. Before this time, is this process executed anywhere? No. So 0. Again, so what is the arrival time? 3. So we need to subtract 3. What is the value? 2. So if we calculate the average waiting time, then 9 plus 0 plus 15 plus 2 by 4. So what is the result? 6.5. Okay, this is the average waiting time. So here if you observe, actually P1 has started its execution. It has been executed for 1 milliseconds of time. After that, P2 has entered into the queue. So if you compare, burst time of P2 is very less compared to the burst time of P1. So among these two, which will get the chance? P2 will get the chance. That means P2 will take the CPU. Okay, here we are giving CPU to the process P2 before finishing P1 its execution. Before P1 finishing its execution, we are forcibly taking the CPU from P1 and we are giving it to the P2. So that's the reason it is called preemptive shortest job first. Here we are not taking the CPU away from any process while it is executing. But here if you observe, while P1 is executing, it has to execute another 7 milliseconds of time. Then also we are not giving CPU to this process. We are taking the processor or CPU. We are taking the CPU away from the process P1 and we are allocating the process to the P2. This is called preemptive shortest job first scheduling algorithm.